holidays, and welcome to First Things First. Monday morning with you here. I'm Jen Wolf. That is Nick Wright. Chris Broussard is with us.
Hello.
Thanks so much for spending some time with us this morning.
To be here.
Not to belabor the point, Jen Wolf, you got a haircut.
All of them.
I like it.
You got a very nice haircut. This is the most different hairstyle you've had since we've been on the show.
Yeah, we did it in increments.
It looks very good.
Yeah, we went short, and then I said, shorter! And this is it. Thank you very much. I figured you were the hair guy most of the year, Nick.
Good to see you.
Jumping on your corner. We have a ton of football to talk about on this program, so let us jump right in with arguably the biggest game on Sunday. That would be the Cowboys and the Eagles. Dak versus Wentz from Philadelphia. First quarter, Wentz came out motivated, finds tight end Dallas Goedert for the 6-yard touchdown to put the Eagles up 10-0. Jump to the end of the third. This time, Miles Sanders getting in on it. Touchdown. Philly up 17-6. Sanders with 156 total yards. Dak and the boys with one more chance, 4th and 8. Not good. It was supposed to be to Michael Gallup. It was a miss. Eagles defense coming up huge, as they did all day long yesterday. Philly wins. They now clinch a playoff berth next week if they beat the Giants. Here is Carson Wentz after the game.
Just like we said the last few weeks, our backs were against the wall, and guys made plays. Defense played great. Offensively, we definitely left some plays and some points out there, but man, it feels good to get this victory.
Frustrating. I've sat here after every game, pretty much, win or loss, and said the good part about it is that we control our own destiny, and that's gone. That's out of our hands now, and that's unfortunate. It's very disappointing because we had the chance, right? We had the chance to control our destiny and be where we wanted to be. But now that it's out of our hands, we've got to control what we can control, and that's getting the win next week.
We've had times this year a lot when we didn't play as well as we wanted to play, but we had in mind stepping back up here and getting on a run and having some good things happen. This is a disappointing setback for that locker room and for all of us, and I know it is for the fans.
So the Dallas Cowboys could have clinched their second straight NFC East title. Instead, they now need help next week if they want to do that. Nick, did the Eagles win this game, or did the Cowboys lose it yesterday?
With respect to Philadelphia, who I picked to win the game, who I think is the better team, and who clearly played better yesterday, the Cowboys lost this game. This game was not about the Eagles finally all of a sudden putting things together, even though Carson Wentz, who I know we're going to talk about, played one of the best games he's ever played as a pro, all things considered. This was about, in the biggest game of the season, the Dallas Cowboys scoring 0 touchdowns. This was about, in the biggest game of the year, the Cowboys offense going 3 and out, getting a field goal, then 4 and out, in the first half for the first 5 possessions of the first half. This was about, once again, some head-scratching play calling, whether it was the first drive of the second half saying, hey, one of the biggest plays of our season, let's run a speed option to our 5th best offensive player, Tony Pollard, all the way to the final offensive play, the final meaningful offensive play the Cowboys will have all year, a 4th and 8, 4th and your season. And on the field on that play is Blake Jarwin, Jason Witten, Tavon Austin, and Michael Gallup. Not on the field on that play is Amari Cooper, who supposedly turned your entire season around last year, or Randall Cobb, who was one of your few major offseason additions. So Dak's commentary, we give Dak a lot of credit for having great quarterback speak. Dak and Jason Garrett, if you watch their commentary after the game, either failed to grasp or just didn't want to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. Only Jason Garrett did. Only Jerry Jones did. Jerry Jones understood it's a wrap now, fellas. Jason Garrett was out here talking about all we can do is look on to next week. Dak is here saying we no longer control our own destiny, but your season is over. Because in the biggest spot of the year, you scored 0 touchdowns, and 6 of your 9 points came because of short fields due to Philly missed field goals. It is a devastatingly disappointing finish to a devastatingly disappointing season.
I agree with everything you said, except you said Philadelphia is the better team, especially yesterday when their guys are hurt. So Dallas, look, the game plan. Let's start with the game plan. Dallas beat themselves, but let's start with the game plan. Ezekiel Elliott in his career against Philadelphia, 115 yards a game, okay? They're 5-0 in those games. Yesterday, you give him 13 carries?
47 yards.
How is that the game plan? I mean, were they scared off by Philadelphia being what? Third-ranked defense, rush defense in the league, second-ranked, third-ranked? Last year, they were sixth-ranked. The year before that, they were the first-ranked rush defense.
What were they ranked?
Still ran the ball against them.
And this year, when Zeke ran all over them in their first matchup.
They were up there. So the game plan from the start was problematic. Your quarterback is dealing with a shoulder injury, and you throw the ball 44 times. You mentioned Tony Pollard on the 3rd and 1. They had 4 3rd and 1s. Twice they gave the ball to Zeke.
What happened?
Twice he got the first downs. Pollard gets it, fumbles. Now, Zeke did call himself out of that play. So, an option with Pollard, I don't hate as much as I would have hated it with Zeke. I would have liked you to go up the middle with Zeke, but Pollard's in there, you do that. The other one, they throw a pass to Amari Cooper, a sprint pass that's incomplete. So their game planning from the get-go was off. Not to mention the fact that last week, the one time you look like yourselves this year, the one time people say, okay, that's the Cowboys team.
They finally put it all together.
It was because you ran the ball. You ran it like 36 times with Zeke and Tony Pollard. They gained like almost 250 yards. And so the game planning was horrible from the start. And then and don't tell me, oh, they got down 10-0, they couldn't run. It was still early. It was way early enough.
To your point on that, Broussard, in the entire second half, the Cowboys had 11 offensive plays down 2 scores. They were never out of the game.
Right.
They could have, in the first half, I don't care if you're down 10-0 in the first half, you can stay committed to the run. And in the second half, you only had 11 plays down 2 scores. They could have stayed committed to the run.
And that's not to mention just the sheer mistakes and missed opportunities. Dak Prescott missed Tavon Austin on a go route that would have been 6. Michael Gallup drops a pass on the last critical possession. That's right in your hands. My dad used to say it when I was growing up. It hits you in a bad spot, the hands. You know, I mean, how do you drop that pass? And so they just blew opportunity after opportunity. Another thing with the game plan, if you run the ball, which you've proven you can against this team, then you keep Wentz off the field. You mentioned how great he played. He was great. But if you run the football, you keep him off the field. So the game plan from the start was flawed, and that's why I say the Cowboys beat themselves.
And on those 3 plays, deep pass to Tavon Austin. Now, to Tavon's credit, he's open, but you miss it. A deep pass to Michael Gallup. To Dak's credit, he made a good throw. Gallup dropped it. And then the 4th down throw that we talked about to Michael Gallup in the end zone. How is Amari Cooper's name not involved? Ezekiel Elliott's name not involved? Even Randall Cobb's name not involved? This is how you end up being one of the most disappointing teams in football.
Well, that's just it. And we wondered whether last week was the real Dallas Cowboy team and that nice win over the Rams, or we wondered if it was all the weeks leading up to it. And after they put together that great game last week, they came back out and they did all the things they've done wrong. They didn't run the ball enough. They fell behind early, which was a theme for them. The play calling was questionable. So I'll ask you, is this the most disappointing season you can remember the Cowboys having, with how healthy they are and with how stacked they are with their talent?
Well, I'd have to go through the history books. I know that there were 3 straight years in the early 2010s when they had a win-in-your-end scenario in Week 17 and they lost. I know that there were a bunch of Tony Romo years that people feel like they underachieved. What I know is this. This was a playoff game. You were playing a team that allowed 27 to Washington twice, allowed 27 to Detroit, allowed 38 to Miami, 37 to you guys, and 38 to Minnesota. And how did you respond? With no touchdowns? A Philly team that hadn't looked good for over a month? And you respond by letting them control the entire game. It is a wildly disappointing season and as disappointing of a game as any team's had all year.
To answer your question, Jenna, I would say, I mean, you hit it on the head. There have been how many disappointing Cowboy seasons in the last 25 years have there been? But with the context, with a lot of people expecting them, I feel stupid now. I picked them to get to the Super Bowl. I was one of many. So people thinking they could go to the Super Bowl, the money you spent this offseason, Ezekiel Elliott, all the way down the line, thinking you're going to pay Dak to make him the highest paid quarterback in the land. I think all of those things considered, this has to be right up there as the most disappointing.
All right, well, we talked about all week for Carson Wentz what this game's mean to him. We said this was probably the biggest game of his career. Time now for a Put a Grade on It, sponsored by Carmack. So Wentz saved his best for Week 16, completed 78% of his passes, 319 yards, and a touchdown, and no turnovers. Nick, put a grade on Carson Wentz's performance.
It's an A+. It's the first playoff game of his career, essentially, and he delivered. Highest completion percentage of any game this season. Highest yards per